Welcome to State of the Market, a program that is brought to you by Business Weekly with me, Kudzanai Sharara. State of the Market is a program where we look at various sectors in the Zimbabwean economy to see how they are doing, how they are performing, and also what the outlook is like. And today we are looking at the export market, and to help me unpack that market is ZimTrade CEO Mr. Allan Majuru, who will be taking us through the 2023 performance of the sector and going into 2024 in terms of the plans that they have. Allan, welcome to State of the Market.
Thank you. Good.
Now let's look at 2023. Obviously, as an organization, ZimTrade is the country's trade development and promotion body. Obviously, we had your targets in terms of achievement. Can you take us through what were your targets and how far did you go in terms of achieving them?
So if you look at 2023, I think up until October, we'd managed to reach about 6 billion in terms of exports. That is overall. And that compared to the same period last year signifies a total export growth about 13%, 13.5 to be accurate. But also if you look at the value-added goods and services, which is where we normally play, the exports there grew by around 20%, which is also quite significant. Remember, when we export value-added goods and services, we export value rather than exporting commodities and raw materials. So that's quite significant. But if you look at 2022, I think we ended the year in January on 7 billion, which is the target that we wanted, because our target is to grow exports by 10% annually, and the target is to reach 7 billion. So we did that in 2022. And looking at where we are in 2023, remember the statistics is up until October. We've not gotten the ones for November and December. So we believe that by the end of 2023, we are going to be in line with the targets that were set, both on the overall growth, but also looking at the value-added goods and services. But with the focus on the sectors, I think there are a number of sectors that did well. I think I'm going to talk about sectors that had very big jumps in terms of export figures. One of them is the packaging sector. I think there are a number of companies there, but one of the key companies that did well, and also that was the overall export of the year, was Unyani, part of Nampak. So they did quite well in terms of exports. So that also contributed to the overall growth in that sector. In terms of export performance, they've managed to get contracts in various parts of the countries, Namibia, Tanzania, you name it. Sorry, it's South Africa, Mozambique, in Tanzania, if I'm not mistaken. And also, if you look at the processed foods, remember during the COVID period, most of the sectors did not do well, but the processed foods did very well. Here I'm talking about companies like Dairy Board, your Kefalos, etc. The processed food sector, your tomato sauces, all those were exported very well. The concentration was mainly within the region. When I say the region, I'm talking about Zambia, Malawi, DRC, Tanzania. That is where most of the goods were going. But also the building and construction did very well. But one sector that came from a negative in 2022 and to a positive in 2023 was the arts and crafts sector, which also did quite well. And if you look at the arts and crafts sector, its performance signifies an impact in communities that we work with. Most of the arts and crafts are coming from places like Lubinga, Lupane, Buhera, where we have an arts and crafts cluster. So it's a good and positive thing that that sector also grew, and we hope that this year it's going to do much better with the efforts that are going to be put in.
Okay, thank you. So there's a presentation that ZimTrade normally shares looking at the country's exports around 1992, which were well diversified, and then looking at what we have now, where it's dominated by minerals. But going into 2024, what are some of the sectors in terms of trends that you are seeing emerging in terms of Zimbabwe's export landscape, and also probably which sectors do you think are showing potential for growth, and also areas that you are prioritizing as ZimTrade?
So I'll start with the horticultural sector. I think you're quite aware. Yesterday we were at University, where we saw for the first time them exporting, and most importantly, exporting rock melons or sweet melons, whatever they call them, but the issues we're exporting. So horticulture for us is a very key important sector that we're going to be putting our best foot forward. And as we speak right now, I think in a couple of weeks, we've got a team going with over 14 companies to Fruit Logistics in Berlin, which is one of the biggest horticultural fairs in the world. And also in March, we're going to be having a masterclass for the horticultural sector, where we're going to go to the Netherlands. That's the hub for horticulture, to also cement the same. But the interesting thing is the entrance of small-scale players in this market, like your Eden Chase, just to mention a few, and a number of players that we're taking through. So it's also exciting us that we are getting people whom you would not have generally seen in that trade coming on board to also export, not only in the region, but also into Europe, just to mention a few. And if you look at the arts and crafts sector, I think for us, one thing we've discovered is sometimes arts and crafts are good because people are not really worried about quality, but are worried about quality. You know, something that might look not nice to you is appealing to somebody. So we believe that with the efforts that are happening and the clusters that are being formed around the arts and crafts sector, it's going to have a meaningful impact. If you look at the sectors that I'm talking about, they've got a huge bearing on the livelihoods of the marginalized. So we're trying to make sure that we bring people in Lupane, people in Binga, people in Cholocho, from across the board into mainstream export businesses through the clusters that I've mentioned. But also of interest, I think last year at our Exporters Conference, there was talk of heritage-based exports. Okay. So for 2024, we are going to be seeing more of that. When I say heritage-based exports, what am I saying? I'll give an example of baobab. It's called Ziziphus mauritania. That's the botanical name, if I'm not mistaken. So for us to export baobab, we don't need to water it. We don't need to put pesticides or anything. Actually, if you put pesticides, the value will go down. You just need to harvest it. Okay. And what we are now doing is to make sure that it's organic certified, so that it fetches a lot of value. So you can imagine the amount of baobab that we have. And the same applies for amarula. We've got it in abundance. So we're also going to be focusing on the same. So the issue is not only what we're exporting, the issue is the value that the people in those areas are going to derive with such interventions. We're also going to be looking at herbs and spices. You know, there are some herbs and spices that okay naturally, and some that are very easy to grow. So focus is going to be put on the same, because the market is there. So there's going to be a lot of effort on the same. But also, if I can jump the gun to talk about some of the interesting stuff that we're going to be doing for 2024. And I think you know what you call horned melons. There's magaka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
name means what?
Yes, those ones. So there's a huge demand and appetite in Europe for the same. And we're also establishing the same in UAE so that we export. So even during the Fruit Logistics Fair, we are going to take samples for people to have a taste and to see. And then from there, we're going to have discussions in terms of how do they want us to grow them. Remember, at the end of the day, when you grow something, have an offtake. You don't want to start to grow whilst the buyer does not tell us what we need to do for us to meet their market demand. So it's going to be something that we're going to be working on closely. So we are hoping by next year, you know, the season is this time. By next year, when we go through the magaka season, we are hoping that by this time next year, we're supposed to be having some horned melons on the shelves either in UAE or in Europe.
You spoke about cluster initiatives, and the issue of skills and resources is something that probably many might be struggling with. Maybe you can take us through in terms of what sort of initiatives or help does ZimTrade offer in terms of skills and resources?
So I'll start with the clusters and also to explain what we mean when we say a cluster. So when we say we've successfully developed a cluster in Rushinga, what we are saying is we have set up a viable exporting entity in that place. So we are going into communities, even irrigation schemes, helping them have a constitution, helping them have rules of engagement, etc. Because at the end of the day, when we export, you need to have a proper managed business. So that is what we are basically doing, because we also need to manage the internal dynamics. So I'll give you, for example, in Gweru, I think it's Chundora area, we've managed to set up a peas cluster where they're exporting mashed and sugar snack peas. And last year, they managed to export peas worth 90,000 US dollars to Europe. I think for us that's very significant, coming from small scale players who have come together. And this year the buyers have managed to give them an offtake of mashed and sugar snack peas to a value of around 150,000 US dollars. So the good thing is it's growing. And we are hoping that one day we're going to sit and that cluster is going to be a business worth 1 million US dollars and beyond as we grow. So we capacitate them, we train them, all those things, and then once they are export ready, we then bring buyers through for them to even take them to trade fairs, for them to have an appreciation of what happens when you engage with buyers, you see. But there are two flagship events that we have been mainly focusing on. That is Eagle's Nest and the Next Year Exporter. And Eagle's Nest is targeted at young entrepreneurs. Here we are not looking at whether you've got a big business. You know, if you recall, there was a time before Apples were phones and laptops, they were being made in a garage. So we are coming with that view to say we are not worried about where you're operating or what you're doing. We are focusing on the idea and how we can build that idea into a viable business, focusing on exports. So it's a one-year program, sort of incubation, where we train people, and we've got the Dragon's Nest aspect to it, where you're questioned by judges, where you want to go, etc. So that at the end of the day, we've got a solid business that is performing. So that has done well. It's in its third year, and most of the youths, some of them have managed to even start exporting. So you start the year not exporting, but at the end of the year, you should be export ready and also exporting. We've got the likes of Moreda in the leather business, and also Rokanda, she's in the leather business. Last year, one of our winners was Zingers. They make chips from bananas, and we are hoping to get them into Zambia and Mozambique with the same. So that is quite promising. So we have got a number of success stories to talk about when it comes to the capacitation of the same. And when you come to Next Year Exporter, I think here we're looking at women-led enterprises that we are also taking through an incubation process for them to be export ready. And I must say we've managed to have a number of success stories on the same, although more could be done, but I feel we are on the right track. We are in our second season. I think the parade for the second cohort will happen in March this year. And then from there, I think we can take stock in terms of the successes that have happened. If I can mention one, there's a lady, and this is now coming back to the heritage-based exports, you know, and most of these youths and these young women are the ones venturing into the same, who is doing a chutney made from Masao, and she's managed to get an order to export to Mozambique. But now the issue is getting the project more bankable so that we can get people to put money so that we can fulfill the orders. You can imagine the amount of ShopRite shops in Mozambique, and you now must have a task to make sure that you're on all their shelves. So that requires a lot of capital for you to do that. So we've done, but besides that, we've got our program called the Marketing and Branding for International Competitiveness Training Program, where we train people from all walks of life in terms of what exports are and what they need to do to be competitive when it comes to exporting.
And you are watching State of the Market, brought to you by Business Weekly with me, Kudzane Sharara. Today we are talking about the export sector, and with me here is the ZimTrade CEO, Mr. Allan Majuru, who is taking us through in what initiatives the Trade Development and Promotion Body has been doing in terms of promoting our exports as a country. The Middle East is one focus area that ZimTrade has been working on, going to outward missions in those countries. If somebody is watching now and thinking about exporting, what sort of products or commodities that we are currently exporting from here in Zimbabwe to Dubai and the UAE?
No, thank you very much. The good thing I have mentioned rock melons, and I think we all saw them go.
The latest kid on the block.
The latest kid on the block. Yeah. But just to give you context, if you look back in 2017, 2018, I think our exports to UAE were around 200 million, 220, if I'm not mistaken. And fast forward to 2020 to 23, we are averaging between 1.6 to 1.8 billion. And UAE is now in the top three. Compared to last year when it was not even in the top 10. So a lot has happened to develop that market. And if you look at the export structure, I think there's minerals, gold, taking center stage. But the good thing is the horticulture is coming to the fore, and also issues to do with leather products. So for us, I think horticulture is coming on board, and also during the Dubai Expo, we found interest in Mazoe. Currently, most of our blueberries are going to UAE. Stone fruit, I mean the peaches, etc. They are also landing on the shelves of UAE. Our mashed and sugar snap peas are also going there, not to mention the rock melon. There are other, because what they want is they want a variety of goods and services. That's why you found out that Ali Golami, they've come and even done backward integration to invest here so that they can now control the supply chain to export citrus, the oranges, and also strawberries. They want those. So the onus now is on us because the buyers are there, but we have to now produce targeting what the buyers want for that market. So there's massive potential, just to mention a few.
Okay. And if somebody now is watching and saying, okay, I'm also doing these horticulture products, can you take us through what they need to do if they are to work with ZimTrade?
So what we normally do and what we normally encourage is before you put a crop in the field, let's have a discussion with the buyer. I'll just tell you a funny story, hopefully to be funny. We found a market of chickens in Angola. Actually, people heard that there were chickens in Angola, but people then went on to produce the chickens. And these big chickens, because people thought they were going to be paid per kg, but the buyer wanted baby chickens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So before you do anything, don't just say, people want blueberries. Some might want the medium-sized ones, some might want the big ones. So understand what the buyer, what the market wants.
And so that information, you can find it from ZimTrade.
Everything you can find from ZimTrade. The buyers, we've got a database of the buyers, complete sheet, because what we are now doing is we are now going through all provinces, giving them information of the requirements and quantities that are required for the export market, for them to assist us in organizing farmers and players to be able to export. So first of all, let's see what the market wants. And from there, we have discussions with the buyers. They tell us some require global gap certification, which sometimes might be steep, but we've got good networks that can come through and also work with us to make sure that that cost is minimized. You get it? So we then go through a training phase to say, for us to export, what needs to be done. You get it? And we also take people through a learning phase where we also take you to trade phase so that you also understand. Remember, you can then produce, but fail on negotiating. And during the negotiating processes, you then lose on value. So we also share and train on negotiating skills when it comes. So it's a whole array of issues that we go through up until we get to the export front.
And you spoke about countries that we are exporting to, inroads into Zambia, some into Mozambique. South Africa is also Zimbabwe's biggest trading partner. Are we making any inroads in terms of the areas that ZimTrade focus on?
Yes, we are. We are making inroads, but what we are also doing, because if South Africa sneezes, we catch a flu, because our eggs are in one basket. So as much as it's going to be key, because we use the Durban port mainly, but also we have got the Beira corridor that is opening up, and also in Namibia, we've got a dry port that has opened up. So we want to use those routes to diversify our export basket. If I can tell you that in 2022, I think during the same period, January to October 2022, 41% of our about 40% of our exports were going to South Africa. But if you look at January to October 2023, comparing the same, I think our exports have gone down to around 30%. But the good thing is, overall, exports are growing. But we are diversifying the basket, which is very good. But what we are now currently doing is also now doing an analysis to see, of that 10%, what is it that is diversified to other countries, so that we see whether we are also realizing value in terms of value addition, or it's just a matter of shifting channel of exporting commodities on the same. So a lot is done. But for South Africa, what we have realized is we've got a big chunk of our diasporans in South Africa. So we are now intentionally guided by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, going through to target the diaspora to make sure that we not only export commodities and raw materials, but value-added goods for our diasporans, but also for other people in the South African market. So you're going to be seeing a lot in terms of that area for engaging the diaspora, for them to be torchbearers for our products. Yeah.
You can't talk of trade without talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is coming. It's here. How prepared are we as a country, and what initiatives is ZimTrade taking to make sure that we get our share of the continental cake?
So I think what has been happening is there are a lot of awareness seminars. That the first thing is to know what is it, and then have an appreciation of what we need to do to be ready for it. So all those things are happening on the ground. But even if you look at our calendar for events for last year, even for this year, the focus is on the African continent. We are going to be doing Ghana. Quite recently, I think in March, we're going to go to Rwanda. These are business missions. We're also going to be focusing on Mozambique, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, Tanzania, just to mention a few. So we are already doing this. But we then want ourselves to be prepared for the actual trading. You know, there are, I think, about 5 countries who have already started using, like Ghana and Kenya, etc., the same platform. So we also want to to prepare ourselves for the same. So see, the issue is it's not about if, it's about when. Because we are already there. We've already ascended to it. So we need to prepare ourselves too, as much as it will give us more market opportunities, like we did the market scan in Nigeria. But these are the big markets. We also did the same when we were in Egypt last year, to have an appreciation. But it opens opportunities, but it also opens our markets, the ones that we are playing in, to other competitors. So we also have to be ready for both.
And lastly, just take us through some of the, I know you've mentioned some of them already, going to Berlin and other countries. Focus areas for ZimTrade going into 2024. So
you mentioned the Middle East. I think if you recall, His Excellency attended a summit in Saudi Arabia last year, and I think from that a lot of potential was recognized. So we're also going to have a market scan on the same, and then follow through with a business mission to Saudi Arabia, because they really need a lot of our foodstuffs. We have started a cluster on sesame, but we then realized even in Egypt, even in Saudi Arabia, the amount of sesame that they want and what we produce, there's a massive potential in that area. So we're going to be focusing on that. Also, we're going to do an outward mission to Doha, Qatar. I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade there, Ambassador Frederick Shah, did an engagement with the diaspora there and some business people, and we found out that there's massive opportunity there. So I hope to see you in Doha, time permitting. So we're also going to have an inward seller mission from the UAE coming through. But also we are going to be attending fairs in Zambia, in Mozambique, like I've mentioned, Rwanda, Botswana, is one of our key partners there, and also the UK. And in the Middle East, China, we're going to be having a Zimbabwe-China Business Forum later on in the year. And also we'll attend the Malaysia show where they are doing halal products. They are going to train us for us to be prepared to export our halal products to them. So that's something to also look forward to. And also we are now at final stages of working out our participation at Osaka Expo 2025, and I think Treasury has allocated funds for us, which is very good, and we are hoping that by end of this year I think we'll be good to go. We're going to spend the first 3 or so months of next year just cleaning up the small issues to make sure that our participation is something that the world will talk about. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Majuru. You were watching State of the Market, a program brought to you by Business Weekly with me, Kudzi Sharara. And today we are focusing on the export market, and obviously with spearheaded by ZimTrade, which is the country's trade development and promotion body. And if you think you want to export, ZimTrade is there to handhold you. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Mr. Majuru.
Thank you.